We make the streams louder.
Alright, what's up guys? So in the last video, you guys saw I actually got the kill switch mounted in the taillight. It's all secured, so that part's all done. In this video, we're gonna actually be rewiring the whole car. Probably gonna be shooting this in like a couple days span, so I'm gonna be like, you know, every day after work I'm gonna be working on it, but I'm gonna compile it all into one video. If you were to do it, it'd probably just take one day. I just, you know, don't have the time right now. I'm coming home from work and working on it, so that's probably why I'm gonna be changing clothes every time a different scene happens. I already went ahead and took the intake manifold off so to give you guys a better view of the alternator and the starter. I took the passenger fender off because that's where I have my. I'm going to show you guys exactly how everything's ran. This is going to be the closest thing I can do to explain to like doing your battery relocation and fuse box relocation without actually doing it. You know what I mean? Just because it's already done, so you guys can actually see how the wires ran. I'll explain everything, how I did it and how I ran all the wires and where all the wires are connected to, but I can't give you just like the full relocation video, so this is the closest thing. So like I said, here's everything already taken apart. The manifolds out of the way. We got a good look at our starter. So my starter, you know, obviously I have my own cable running right here. The alternator has its own cable running right here. It's behind this wire right there, and both of these I have running side by side down here. So let's run down to the bottom. So here you can see I have them like protected in this loom. They both come up the fender just like that, and then they run here through there, and then I found this little grommet right behind the fender right there where I have most of my wires going in the car. So we're only focusing on these two wires right here. This third one, this is nothing, don't worry about that. So these are the wires. The ground was actually too long. Well, actually that's the starter wire. It was too long. I had to loop it around. But it goes into this grommet right there, and then I'll show you where it comes into the car. So when you're in the car, you're gonna go under this kick panel on the passenger side. I can't even show you because I can't even see up there. When I ran the wires, I actually just had to feel it all around. So they come down here. My fuse box is in my glove box. So here's the fuse box. All those wires back there, you know, all the extended wires to extend the fuse box. But here's our black one. The black one is our starter. So it goes, if you're looking at the fuse box like this, if I think right now it's upside down. So if you have the fuse box upside down, the left one is your starter, and the right one I believe goes to your battery, because the alternator runs straight to the battery, so it's not going to run to the fuse box. I could be wrong, I have to double check everything. And I have this blue wire here, which is for my electric steering, so I'm feeding power to the electric steering from the fuse box. But anyway, so here you can see the wires ran. I have them like ran under this sill. Let's see if I can pull this up. There you can see them, they run all under the sill, all the way to the back where I have a distribution block. So I'll probably show you guys that in another part of this video. Scratch that, I'm confusing you guys because I just confused myself. The black wire you saw going to the fuse box is the alternator. The alternator goes to the fuse box. The red wire is the starter. The starter runs straight back to the battery, so I got a little confused. I'm probably going to be taking all of this apart in steps. So I'm going to start with the front of the car like I have right now. The whole front is apart. I'm going to probably make a new starter wire because I'm not too crazy about the way this one looks. I'm going to get the alternator wire. I'm going to redo that. I have a diagram. But kind of, you know, the way I am, the way I think is I need to see something like actually drawn out in order for me to understand it. So I'm going to show you guys the diagram I made to see if maybe that'll help you guys explain how I'm going to do this rather than just doing it. You know, at least you guys have like a visual of how I'm wiring everything, and you guys can see if it'll work for you. I don't want to say I know. I'm like 90% sure it's going to kill the car the way I have it wired up, but I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'll just keep updating you guys. So here's the diagram. This is basically from the front of the car all the way to the back to where the trunk is. And I wish I was like engineered and explained where I had a big whiteboard, because that would have been easier, but that's all right. We're going to make do with what we have. So from the engine, like I said, here's our starter. So this was our red wire. So this red wire goes all the way to my distribution block, which is in the back, which is in the car somewhere. I'll show you where it is. And from the distribution block, I also have, no, that's wrong. It looks like even when I was doing this, I confused myself, because as you guys just saw, I have the actual power steer, the electric rack running to my fuse box. So the only wire I'm actually going to have going to my distribution block is going to be the starter wire, which you see I'm going to be using a 4-gauge cable. The alternator runs through the fuse box, which I'm going to again use a 4-gauge cable, and from the fuse box we're going to go all the way to a 100 amp circuit breaker, and then from the breaker we're going to go all the way to our switch, which is right here, which we're going to use the left side of our switch. And also from that same terminal we're going to wire it to the battery. Then that starter cable we have coming from the distribution block is going to run all the way to this 100 amp circuit breaker. From the 100 amp breaker, it's going to run to the opposite side of the switch. So the switch is going to be it's going to be basically splitting the current. I don't know if I'm explaining that right. So the switch is basically just a bridge, as you know. I guess that's the best way I can explain it to make all of this work. But when you flip the switch, it's going to kill the power coming from the alternator, which technically should just kill the car totally. And I'm going to be using 1-gauge cable after the distribution block and after the fuse box. So coming out of the fuse box is all going to be 1-gauge cable, just to keep up with the current. And on the negative side, I just have, you know, one chassis ground, and then I have one ground going all the way to the engine, just to get a pretty good circuit and pretty good ground. But here, I'll give you guys another look. Like I said, don't go by this electric seat. I mean, I guess I technically could just run the rack right to the block, because then the rack will be pulling power from the switch, which the switch is pulling power from the battery. I might even just fix that. Maybe I did that like that on purpose. I can't even remember. I drew this a while ago. So first things first, we're going to start with our starter wire and our alternator wire. We're going to make new wires, and then we'll just keep working our way back through this diagram. All right, so here's a better view of, actually there's my distribution block. So you can see we're going into the back seat. So all these wires run under the sill, and we got all, you know, the back seats taken out. The distribution block, I usually have it like, you know, bolted somewhere over here. Here's our starter wire, the red wire. Let's make sure we get it right this time. So I pulled that all the way back. So as you can see, the starter wire runs into our distribution block. This other wire right here, this is our alternator. So this is coming from the fuse box. This is the I don't even know if you want to call it like the outgoing wire, because we have our black alternator wire going into the fuse box, and then coming from the fuse box to the battery would be this red one, which is why I just have the distribution block to split it. This other wire here, like you saw it in the fender well, this is just, I used to have my battery under my bumper. So if I ever had a jump starter or anything, I had like those remote terminals on top of the cowl. I don't know if you guys ever seen them in previous videos. I'm probably just going to get rid of this just because my battery's in the trunk, so I don't have to worry about that. But this wire, since this is our alternator wire, we're actually going to take it out of the distribution block and run this straight back, because here's the power wire that goes to the actual battery. We're going to avoid it and make it its own, I don't know, quote unquote circuit in a way, to go straight to the switch. So here's just a better idea to show you guys. Alright guys, I've been on this car for like the past 3 days off camera, just because something didn't make sense to me when I was actually doing it. And I was running this by a whole bunch of people, and they were giving me some inputs, and they were giving me some information saying that some of it was right, some of it wasn't right. And it just like, I just wasn't in the mindset to pick the camera up and just go through this over and, you know, explain everything. But the first part of this is wrong. That first diagram, don't even go by that. Forget I even put that in there. I'll leave it in the video just because I have some other information on there, but don't go by that. I finally figured this out this morning. I got the switch working the way I needed it to work, and this was just like, I basically figured out with information, like little bits of information from everyone and forums online. And I'm just going to show you the new diagram I drew and just kind of give you, explain to you guys the way I'm looking at it and the way I'm understanding it. So let me show you. So right now the whole back of my car is a mess. I have temporary wires, just like you can see here. I have temporary wires bolted up just because I needed to try it one last time before I gave up. And so I'm going to redo all the wiring. I'll show you guys that little process, but here's the new schematic, whatever you want to call it. We're going to start from the battery because for some reason I thought the alternator was feeding power somewhere, and it's just completely wrong. Power is obviously coming from the battery, okay? So we have battery going into one post of the switch, all right? On that same post, you're gonna run a single wire straight to your alternator. So don't worry about the fuse box, don't worry about none of that. Run a wire from the same post that the battery's coming from all the way to your alternator. Make sure that's good. I'm gonna be using a 4-gauge cable for this, all right? This gauge cable that I have running from the battery to this switch is a 2-gauge because I want a 2-gauge cable on my battery. Now, your starter is going to run into a distribution block, which I have right over there. Let me zoom in on that for you guys. So that's my distribution block. You can find those online. So you're going to take that starter cable that is on your starter. You're going to run that in your cabin or wherever you're doing this. Run that wire to your distribution block. Now your fuse box, wherever that is, in my case it's in my glove box, which is why I have it in this location on the diagram. You're going to run 2 wires to the distribution block as well. The reason why is because it's like I said, the fuse box has no power unless it gets it from the battery. So the battery, when this switch is on, figure like a bridge, these two are connected, so the power is going from this cable to this post and then to the second post because it's crossing that bridge, going straight into your distribution block, and then feeding your fuse box. I almost said Facebook. Feeding your fuse box, feeding your starter. That's where I was confused. I had the alternator run into the fuse box and then from here going to the switch, which was constantly back feeding back to my alternator and into my fuse box. So in theory, this switch is killing the fuse box. And what's on the fuse box is your ignition coils, your fuel pump. You're basically just shutting the whole car down. So you're not really killing the alternator. You are, but the fuse box is doing that for you. This is the way to wire it up, guys. This is the way it's going to work with a 2-post switch. So here, let me give you a closer look. So we'll start from the bottom. I hope this helps you out a lot, guys. This, like I said, this was a 3-day process of me trying to figure this out. Probably would have been funny to see me on camera flip the switch and see the car running because I was cursing it a lot. I was cursing a lot. It works. I'm gonna start rewiring the car, finally make my final connections, and I'll give you guys a clip of everything, how it works. In case you guys are wondering how I'm actually making my cables and crimping the terminals, let me show you. So I'm using copper terminals. This is 4-gauge, and here you can see I didn't crimp it yet. I got it and I just cut it, slip it on, get a good fit. And what I'm using to crimp it is this tool I actually just bought today. You can get it from Harbor Freight. It's a hydraulic wire crimping tool. These are good for like the heavy gauge wires, because the other little stuff, I just use my regular crimpers, but gives you like numbered dies. It's right here. Let's get it in the light. You can see that's for like a 0-gauge. One thing to note, this is not really a review, but they're like a little off. So if I was to use, let's say, like a 2-gauge, if I was using like a 2-gauge wire with the 2-gauge terminal, I tried the 2-gauge and it feels like it doesn't crimp it as good, so I ended up going a size down. So I would go to like a 4-gauge. I would use the 4-gauge die to crimp the 2-gauge wire, and it crimped it tighter. So that's just something I noticed. connection you want. Nice and crimped. Put some heat shrink on this and look good. Bam, alternator connection all set. If it'll focus. That's how I make my connections. So I'm going to be doing like those on all the wires. Alright guys, so after all the headaches we had wiring this car up, everything is finally good. It's all put back together. So let me show you how this setup works. So we're in the car, we're about to start it up. She's running. Now let's go in the back and show you how the switch works. So here's our switch. It's on the on position. Obviously you guys can hear the car running. We're gonna kill it. And that's it. The car is off. We have literally no power to the car. Nothing. No lights on. Everything is dead. So now, and you can see the way the gauge just, I don't know why they do that, but it stays like that. So with the key still in the run position or the on position, if I turn that switch back on, the fuel pump's going to kick right back on. I don't know if you'll hear it. I'll open up the hatch. Maybe you'll help. That'll help. Oh, and I can't because the power's off. All right, just take my word for it. So we're going to turn this on. I hear the pump. And here, look, we got all our power back on. So that's the way to wire this switch up. That's the way to get the car to die at the track in case of an emergency. I should also mention, if you do that, and if you wire it up the way I wired it up, you hit that switch every time, obviously all your radio settings are going to reset. Everything's going to reset in the car. One thing I'm not 100% sure of, which maybe somebody could correct me, but since I have, you know, a custom tune on this, I feel like, though I did this once and it took maybe 2 to 3 minutes for the car to come back to normal. Like, I don't know if it actually, if the tune reset and then the tune had to relearn itself, because after I flipped the switch on and off, started the car up, the car didn't want to run right, and it was weird. They kind of backfired a little bit. The idle was all off, but then 2 minutes later it just smoothed out. You know what, let's see it. Let's see if it does it right now. We're back in the car. Let's try it out now and see if it does it. How does it look like it's doing it now? Could just be me then. Yeah, even the air fuels are okay. It's a little lean right now. Could be because it's a cold start. I think it's alright. It might have just been a coincidence when that happened, but it works. I hope this video helped you guys. I hope this video actually showed you, or it helped explain to you how my battery relocation is, because I know you guys have been asking for that a lot. This is the best way I can show you how I did it. So if you are trying to do it, just try to follow those steps, how I was showing you how I relocated my battery. If you have any questions, obviously hit me up, send me a message. I try to respond to most of you guys. It's actually been catching on. You guys are sending me messages, so if I don't respond right away, give me some time. I'm usually probably busy with work, or you know, I have some messages built up that I'm trying to get to. So just, you know, I appreciate you guys sending me messages. Like I said, if you need help, send them to me. If you are new to this channel, make sure you hit subscribe. If this video helped you out, give me a big thumbs up, because those likes basically really help the channel grow and help spread the video out across YouTube so other people can find me. So just keep it up, guys. I appreciate all the love you guys are giving me. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay motivated and keep making these streets louder.